Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 253. Today, Anissa and myself are joined by the one and only Ellen Kaspern, who is a phenomenal woodworker, has been featured in Fine Woodworking magazine many times, and she is kind of one of our machinery gurus. So we've got a bunch of machinery setup questions for her, and it's a really fun conversation about how Ellen likes to work in the shop and how she gets the most out of her tools and machines in the workshop. Before we get started, I just want to tell you about the issue that is getting wrapped up to head to the printers just a couple days after this episode comes out. It'll be available in December, issue number 294. It's featuring David Lamb, Jonathan Brower, Tom McLaughlin, Garrett Hack, Bob Van Dyke. You've heard about a lot of these articles already here on the podcast because the podcast is kind of a sneak peek preview of what is coming along in everything else with Fine Woodworking. If you listen to this podcast, the best way of getting the most out of this podcast is by becoming an unlimited member. So head on over to finewoodworking.com/members to sign up for a 2-week trial of an unlimited membership and get access to all the great stuff that we talk about here on the podcast. The magazine issues, the video workshops, the full complete archive of 40 plus years of Fine Woodworking magazine, everything. And if you happen to be a non-woodworker in the room listening to this podcast with your favorite woodworker, now is your cue to ask them if they have an unlimited membership. And if they don't, that might be their subtle way of telling you that the gift that they could really use the most, something that they're going to get a lot out of this holiday season, is an unlimited membership. Head on over to finewoodworking.com/members and sign up your favorite woodworker. They're really going to appreciate it and they're going to use it. All right, we'll get started with the episode after a brief word from one of our sponsors. Even if you're not a professional woodworker, you want to use the glues that the pros use. And 3 out of 4 pro woodworkers trust Titebond as their glue of choice. For building wood furniture or cabinets, to making picture frames or birdhouses, or just general repairs around the house, Titebond has the widest choice of glues to help with whatever project you want to tackle. Titebond, the right glue for your next project. For more information, visit Titebond.com, Titebond.com, or visit them on Facebook and Instagram. So, how's the new shop, Ellen?
It's great. I love it. Yeah, it's really nice. The other shop, the owners were taking back the building, so it closed, but it's really good. I really like it. There's 19 people in it, and most are North Bennett Street grads. Not that it matters. But it's just people that I know, so it's really nice, and the machines are great. It's good. I have a much smaller space, but I've reorganized, so that is good. And it made me rethink how I organize things. And I had this clamp rack that was huge and massive, and it was just a waste of space, and cut it up and threw it out and hung the clamps on the wall. And yeah, so it was good. It's good. It made me rethink.
So for the listeners, for the past while, you've been in a couple of different shops with 3 or 4 other people in pretty much the heart of Boston, right?
Yes.
So shop real estate's not easy to come by there, right?
I've never had a problem. When I first left school, I was in a shop with someone that graduated with me. And he had a barn, and I was there with one other person for like a year. And then I moved to a shop in Boston with 6 or 7 other people. And I was there for 15 years. And then from there, it was just time for me to move on. I moved to a shop actually outside of Boston. And that was exactly 2 years until that closed because of the space was being taken back by the owners. And then I moved back into a shop in Boston, in Charlestown. And that's great. And that's been in March. So yeah, but the shop that I was in the longest for 15 years, that shop physically moved spaces 3 times that from
Oh,
being
okay.
in it.
So like
Remember.
like when you say shop, that was the collective
That
that
was
you
yeah,
were.
that was a
Okay.
true that shop was a true cooperative. We were all actually equal owners,
Hmm.
and we were all listed as the owners and split everything equally. And so that was a true cooperative. And yes, and that shop we moved spaces like 2 years in and then 10 years in. Actually, we might have moved 4 times. So I got very good at moving my stuff.
If you've got a table saw set up,
Yeah.
do you have to get it done and get off? Like, what's it like working in a community shop like that? Or
Not really. I will tell you this new shop, I've been doing so much work on my house that I haven't been going that much or just prepping for a few classes. But I feel like you spend most of your time at your bench. So it's just like maybe the initial, but in every shop that I've been in has at least 2 or 3 table saws. So, and this
oh,
shop has 2 table saws and a sliding saw. Yeah, every shop I've been in has at least three table saws. So, yeah,
oh, see, in the
yeah,
fine woodworking shop, we would only the old one at least we only had one of each, and you'd come in and Anissa would have "Do not touch this drill press" on a
yeah,
sign taped to it for 3 weeks.
yes. No, no, it doesn't happen. Or you do that at the end of the night and you write a note and you're like, but if you really need it, then move it if you want. So.
Anissa, have you ever like had your shop space? Because you have shop at home. Have you ever had your shop space in a community shop environment like that?
Well, just at the school, at the College of the Redwoods,
Okay.
or the Krenov School. But there were multiple, I mean, that was just the ideal setup because there was a giant separate bench room and then a big machine room. There were 3 table saws. And David Welter was like there making sure everything was running perfectly in the shop. So it's not really a realistic setup. And, everybody would go in and clean at the end of the day, the bench room, the machine room. So I think, because there was school oversight, I think it may have run a little bit more perfectly than what I imagine a shared shop space would be. Like, that there were never any issues in terms of that. I will say I only did that once with the drill press side. And that was part of the nightmare modular wall unit project.
I think you just kept adding to the sign too, and it was like, I'm really, really, really sorry. One more week.
Yeah. That was a little invasive, but I apologize. But I almost lost my mind if that balances it out and makes it better.
Yeah, we knew.
But I figured it out in the end.
Ellen, you have like throughout all of those years, because we think at Fine Woodworking, we come to you for you did our 8-inch joiner test. You've done a lot of tool reviews, table saw setup, the latest table saw setup article, and then you and Matt Wada did that series for us that people still talk about.
That's nice.
And so I think of you as a machine guru. So like when you join a shop, do people go like, oh great, I don't have to worry about the machines anymore? Cause Ellen's and just like, cause like I would be like, hey, Ellen's around. I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna wait till she's annoyed by it.
Ben, that's what I thought about these questions that we have for the podcast. I was, Ellen's going to be there.
The Ellen Kaspern folder's been sitting there. You and I are props, Anissa.
Not at the shop that I was there for 15 years because my mentor was a part of the shop, and two of my mentors were founded that shop. But then when I went to the shop in Concord, I think Jamie Pope, who's a good friend of mine, it was his shop, and I would be like, "Hey, Jamie, can I fix this?" And I think he was excited that, you know what I mean? And he can do it all himself. And then at this shop we have Bob. So I mean, come on,
Yeah.
you know, the other,
So
you know,
Bob like
the other guru.
Bob relishes in
Yeah.
machine maintenance.
So
and,
I'm kind of psyched that I'm like, okay, this shop is managed by Bob, and I don't have to, you know, it's really
You're off
nice
the hook.
that you don't have to think about it, because if there's an issue, it's like, or, you know, you want something done. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
Nice to be off the hook. Yeah.
Well, should we answer some questions?
Sure.
You mean, should Ellen answer some questions?
And we're just going to
Sure.
bob our head. And agree.
Yeah.
All right. So this first question is from Bill. It is with a heavy heart that I have come to terms with the fact that I'm going to have to place my workshop into an extended storage. My wife and I are returning to Massachusetts from Pennsylvania in the coming month. When all is done, we will have our dream house and I will have my dream shop. Unfortunately, we are building a home and it will take 15 months until we get to move in. As such, I'm having to place all of my workshop, hand tools, and large woodworking machines in storage. I would like your guidance on how to properly prep and store my tools. Additionally, I will be storing approximately 1,000 board feet of lumber and would like your guidance as well. Over the quiet period, I plan on reading about, listening to, and dreaming of the better woodworking days ahead, but it's going to be difficult.
And that was Bill? Is that?
Yes, that's
Okay.
Bill. So let's take it in bits. Putting a shop in storage.
Yes.
What's your checklist look like?
Well, I've never had to do that. Thankfully, I thought I was this past time. I didn't know if I was going to have a shop, and I thought everything was going to go in my garage. But I would say that, you know, using your tools clearly keeps them from rusting, and often both the shop that I was in at the longest, it was on the water. So that definitely, you know, was on the harbor in Boston. So definitely moisture was an issue. I would say, you know, paste wax on the beds of the table saw and the joiner, just to protect it from rusting. I would get like anything that would hold moisture off of it. So really chop back out and clean the tools of sawdust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking, you know, when you get a new machine or you get a new tool, it often has like some sort of grease on it. So maybe find out what they're using.
Cosmoline, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a fun
yeah.
word to say. That's why I remember that one.
What is it called?
Cosmoline, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then I have in the past and I do still keep chalk in my toolbox. I heard that the chalk can like will take in the moisture. So for the longest time I would keep like chalk like in different drawers where my hand planes were and different things like that. So that might be something to look into.
Do you want to know something really weird? One time I must have heard that and I put chalk in a toolbox, and then like 2 years later I opened it up and I was like, why is there chalk in here? And it never made sense to me. But as soon as you said that, I was like, wait, there's a bundle of chalk in a
You know
a
what?
paper towel.
I think Bill should try that and let us know how that works out.
Yeah.
Follow up with us, Bill.
So have in all of those shop moves and everything, you have had to move a lot of machinery, right?
Yes, correct.
I mean, I know it's far too vast of a topic to really get into, but like, do you have anytime I've moved machines, it's always been something I stayed up at night worrying about. And then it's always been a tragic experience in my mind, at least. But do you have any recommendations for moving a lot of machinery?
Hire a rigger, you know.
Like an actual rigger.
Yeah, yeah, like there's people that actually do this. And then, a pallet jack is always good to have. And there's also a tool that I don't know what it's I think it's some sort of jack, but it's just like a really long bar. And does anyone know what that's called? And you can kind of like pry it under things to help like lift things. Um, I don't know what
Oh,
they're called.
like one of those farm jacks or what? Yeah, I think
It's
I know
not,
what you're talking about.
yeah.
It's like a big version of the old school spare
Uh,
tire jack, right?
No, it just kind of
Okay.
it just kind of pivots, but I'm
Huh.
not
Okay.
sure. But I know that's nice to like maybe like if you need to like move something a couple feet, it wouldn't definitely be to physically move something, pick it up
Hmm.
and move it, but probably a pallet jack would be good and really strong people and take as
well,
much off as you can, you
Yeah.
know.
So like a joiner, you're gonna take off the beds if you can.
I wouldn't no, I don't think I would do that. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
think I would do that, but I guess, I guess, yeah, really, what would you now that I'm saying that, like, what would you know, really, what could you take off of the different machines? Or maybe, I moved a table saw to my house and I definitely took the top off of it, but that was a contractor saw, so that was different. So yeah, maybe there's just strong people. Yeah.
But you've actually hired a rigger in the past.
Yes, we have. Yes, definitely. And for like really huge band saws and yeah, and they have like a big, they have like chains and
waste.
they just move it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think people hire movers, but that's probably the wrong
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they have no idea how to move a bandsaw.
No, no. Yeah.
Which like to me, the worst tool to move, I think, is a bandsaw, just because it's so top heavy. Don't you think?
Yes, yes, and that actually you could like I have a 14-inch bandsaw at my house, an old Delta and Rockwell, and that I actually you could that I definitely took it apart. I took the blade out, so that's one thing you can like take half of it apart or take it off
Hmm.
of its stand. Um, Also, putting things on wheels is great. That's what I've been doing at my house. Yeah, I have a lot of stuff at my house too, so wheels are great.
You have tools everywhere, I guess.
I
So
do, I do. It's really hard too when teaching, like, I'll be like, "Oh, I need my files, but I keep running to the shop." So I get an extra set. And so I've like, oh my, yeah, it's
so you have
crazy.
duplicates of a lot of things
I
just
do.
to prep for classes and
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um okay, so if I think if I were putting stuff in deep, well, no, I did put stuff in deep storage, and like my only advice for Bill is to like accept that you are going to pull something out, and it is going to be heartbreaking.
Right.
What'd you say, Nisa?
Oh, well, I was going to say rusty, but
Yeah.
heartbreak, sure. Um,
Um.
Go ahead.
No. No. You go.
Well, I was thinking about our fine woodworking shop and
Hmm.
breaking that whole thing down. And we had the luxury of a climate controlled
Mm.
building that we left everything in for a few years. And we would all walk back and forth past it. And now we're
Root
finally
through it when we needed to
through
borrow
it.
something.
Yeah. But I think, he said extended storage, or what did he say?
Yeah, extended storage
Extended
means to
storage.
me it's not going to be climate controlled.
It's probably not climate controlled. I guess I would definitely, the paste wax is a good idea. I do a little bit of a twist on the chalk thing in cupboards and I do cat litter. Somebody somebody told me once to put it in my wood stove during the off season in the ash pan. So that's kind of what I do around the shop. So there are little trays of cat litter that I'll put in a cabinet with a bunch of hand tools. I would definitely steel wool, any rust before I paste wax the tops of the machines.
Okay.
Or But I'd also do camellia oil on all the hand tools before I pack them up.
Mm.
Which I do, but I also have a heat issue in my shop. So I kind of feel like every season my tools and machines go into kind of like a deep storage scenario. And because I'm not in there as much as I'd like to be. So in my fantasy life, I'm doing that kind of stuff, getting any rust that's building up and paste waxing the machines more often than I actually do, but I don't think it's a bad idea to do that more frequently than probably most of us do. But then I guess if he's boxing a lot of stuff up and putting them into storage, I would definitely keep that stuff off the ground. Oh. So maybe put like 2x4s on the ground or furring strips or something, and then just so there's some air underneath those boxes. But, or, like if he could get air conditioned heated space for his shop, that would be ideal.
Well, I guess, here's the thing. When I moved my shop, I invested in like those big heavy duty, like those really heavy duty totes.
Yeah.
And the good thing is we're still riding that train. We have, the chickens have been in the totes. My wife uses them as a wash basin for fabric, all sorts of things. So they have a long life, but instead of storing things in cardboard boxes, which don't hold as much weight as you wish they would, the totes are really nice and stackable.
Yeah.
And you can load them down like crazy. And then you just have to be able to move them. So I stored everything in those totes for my shop move. And if I was really smart about it, I think I would have labeled them as such hand tools, finish supplies, things like that. And then if I could have maybe wiggled the hand tool tote into a climate controlled environment and left the things that, I don't really care about rusting. There was things I moved that were like, why did I move like a 1/3 full tin of paint thinner? Like, this is stupid. Find a friend and give it to the friend, or like I don't know why I did half we moved in a rush, but I think if I were to put things in long-term storage again, I would put as many hand tools as I could into a plastic tote and stuck them in a corner in a climate-controlled place, because those are the ones that break my heart.
I was thinking the same thing, Ben. I was thinking that exact same thing. Take those really precious hand tools and hand planes and, just take a box of them and put them in a house somewhere. Definitely. Yeah. And also I love the idea of having things off the ground because, especially if it's on concrete or something, it will pull moisture. And so, I love that idea too. Yeah.
Yeah. And getting the sawdust off is smart.
Yeah. Because that's going to trap the moisture.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't really necessarily think of that day to day, trapping moisture, but in a long-term storage situation, absolutely. You're right. That's going to really, and I guess also just deal with the fact that that you're going to have to set these tools up again when you get to wherever you're going. Don't be like me and try and get away with moving a jointer and saying, well, Matt waited to set this up 3 months ago. I don't want to do it again. And so all right. So, speaking of jointers, this next question is from Spencer. I have a question regarding jointers. I see that most joiner planes are 22 inches long and are the foremost at flattening boards by hand. However, when it comes to power tool joiners, everything I have ever read, seen, or heard states the longer beds of the joiner, the better it is for flattening operations. What is the reasoning behind this? Is it merely that the power tool jointer needs the extra length to support the workpiece, whereas with a hand plane, the workpiece is clamped in place? If this is the case, then could I still get good results from placing a roller stand at the outfeed side of my rather short 6-inch jointer? If not, what is the approximate length of stock one can safely and accurately flatten on a jointer of a given size?
Good question. So for the hand plane, you're flattening the reason it's only 22 inches long, you're flattening in sections. So first you're going to start and you're going to, I have a long 24-inch Starrett ruler, and I will, start flattening apart with it, and then I'll put the ruler on it and I'll look for light. So then you're kind of getting sections flat, and then you're going between those sections. So you're not just doing the whole run at once. And at the end you'll start planing. So with the machine, you're flattening the whole board at one time. So you're doing one whole pass. So what I would think about is, first I would think about how often are you running like an 8-foot, 9-foot board? Maybe you're making a kitchen table or a bed, but most projects are under like 4 feet. So the first thing I'd want to do is, and I see this a lot. I teach fundamentals of machine maintenance class. That's probably the class that I teach the most. And one of the first things I say is, hey, we want to break our pieces down into the smallest possible lengths that are the safest to go through the machines. And so minimum length is 12 inches. I wouldn't mill anything over a joiner that's less than 12 inches. It's not safe. So first I would, instead of just running that 8-foot, 9-foot board, I'd say, hey, let me break it down into like, maybe it's 2 feet and then, 15 inches and break those parts down and then run them over the joiner. If you're worried about maybe the joiner tipping over, like, or that, there's so much hanging off the edge that you can't hold it flat on the infeed and outfeed table. Yeah. Put some rollers just to kind of help you with that. I'd rather have the rollers a little bit lower than too high. I think your biggest thing will be if a longboard has a severe bow in it, then, getting it flat. If it has a cup in it, then you're definitely going to get that out. It might take you a little bit longer, a few more, more passes, but I think you could, you can definitely do longer boards. I don't know what the longest you can do is, but it's not impossible. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, no, I've always thought that, like things like what is the length that you can expect, blah, blah, blah. Like those are things that you see on a forum because of course there's some formula out there that like this bed length can reach it, but you use the tool you have, right? So It's like if you have a 6-inch joiner and an outfeed roller makes it so you're able to joint that 8-foot board the one time every decade you're going to do it, fine. As long as the board winds up flat, right?
Yes.
And so like in a perfect world, everyone's got a huge joiner with like these huge outfeed tables and you can flatten everything in one pass, but that just doesn't exist, right? Like, so if you have a 6-inch joiner, just get through it however you need to get through it. And what I got from what you were saying is like, listen, a number 8 Lee Nielsen isn't going to guarantee that you're going to wind up with a flat board when you join it by hand, right? Like there's still skill involved and
yes,
flattening sections and then so
overlap.
Yeah. So like it's one of those things that people worry about, but I think it's not worth worrying about, right? I mean, Anissa, how big is your joiner?
The bed is 8 inches.
Yeah. But you don't know the length, right? Nobody knows the length of their joiner.
No idea.
I have no idea. I have
Exactly.
no idea. I have no idea. Yeah. No idea.
So like you're not making this calculation. Oh, the bed length. I'm looking at my joiner right now. It's the outfeed table's 32 inches. Oh no, this board is only this. I need to joint this board that is whatever. I need to go find another no, you get it done.
No, yeah. And cutting everything down to length, I mean, it's just, I think it's one of those things that like, oh yeah, but I think we start looking at this board. I'd rather, if I could have a more depth, like I'd love to have a 12 or 15-inch joiner, but I don't. So I figure, like you said, I just make it work. But cutting the board down is just one of those things that I think some people lock into tunnel vision and they're just like, I need to joint the whole thing, like Ellen was saying. And so it makes a lot of sense to break everything down. But also I feel like I just automatically do that at this point. I don't think like, oh, I have to do the whole thing at the same time. But I also think that when you're jointing a shorter, like a 4-foot board as opposed to an 8-foot, you're able to apply smoother, consistent pressure on that shorter board. So you're going to get a better cut rather than like the motion that you have to go through to get that, feed that longer board through until you get to the end. And it's just easier. So, I mean, I don't have too much to add to that except like break it down or do what you need to do, the rollers. And I think it's kind of like what you said, Ben, sometimes the answer is already there. A lot of people write in with the answer to their question, but I mean, it's good to get us talking about it, and it's good to get confirmation that you're on the right path.
Well, and okay, let's look at it from the other side too. So like I would assume a number 7 is like a 22-inch long plane, right? Does that sound right? Sure.
Yeah.
Like probably out there's somebody who made a plane that is longer than 22 inches for jointing longer boards. So like, the Coopers, is it Coopers or I feel like I saw a Williamsburg video of it's a craftsperson back in the day who actually made, it was like their jointer was a stationary bench, if you will. And they would pass the whole thing, the board over it like we would with a modern jointer. And that would probably work better than a 22-inch long joiner. Maybe the 22-inch long joiner is 22 inches because that's what they could easily manufacture in high volumes. It's not like 22 inches is some magic number too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do want to say that with the hand plane, I mean, you will end up, running the whole hand plane over the board and in long passes, but oftentimes you are just, working in sections. You're like, oh, this is high, so let me work here. And then, you're working your way out and then doing. So I don't want people to think that, I wouldn't be running the whole hand plane over the board. You will be, but then you are kind of, looking at sections and then, bringing them, and then you see people flattening with like, they have that router set up and then they make some sort of fixture and then they're, you know what I mean? Like you see or maybe you find that friend that has a bigger joiner.
Wander up to Bob Van Dyke's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do each, well, okay. So at your new shop, how big is the joiner?
20 inches. There's 2. Yeah. There's a 20-inch one. And the other one, I'm not quite sure because I think it's at least 12. It might be wider than that, but I've been So
okay, so that's a
massive.
whole new You're not worrying about how am I going to get this board jointed?
Same at the shop that I was at for 15 years. It was a 20-inch joiner, so I was more worried about did we have the space in front and behind to run a really long board that we weren't going to hit another machine and different things.
Yeah. What's I have to move my dust collector if I need to joint a board over 4 feet. Like what's the clearances for an ideal set of clearances for you?
I would think, you want 10 feet, 9 feet, I've done a dining room table that was 9 feet long. So probably just to be safe, 10 feet front and back, but that's how often am I doing that?
Yeah.
Once in 20 years, or, you're making a bed or something. So yeah. Yes.
Anissa, or you have someone that you go to if you need to joint over 8 inches, or?
Well, back in the day, I would just take everything to the fine woodworking shop.
Yeah. We're going to be limited to 12 now, right?
I don't know.
I think it's a 12. Yep. I think it's a 12-inch joiner.
Huh. Well, I'll take it.
That's nice.
But
yeah. Oh yeah.
No, I haven't. The only time recently since that's closed down that I've needed wider, I kind of fudged things with the planer. So I sent everything through on the planer, on a piece of plywood, an 8-foot piece of plywood. And that trick really works. So no, I don't have a friend with a big jointer. I use the fine woodworking shop. I'm sure I could probably bum somebody's jointer around town, but I haven't.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all want to take a break? Here's Gary Rogowski from the Northwest Woodworking Studio to tell you about his online mastery program.
Thanks, Ben. The online mastery program grew last year out of the issues with the pandemic, exposure, and travel. Our first online classes have been great. We start a new group of 15 students this December. They will work from their own shops, meeting online with me for lectures, videos, and discussions. Our mastery program has run now for over 20 years. In it, folks learn to design and build great furniture. But let me be clear. This program is not just for seasoned woodworkers. We take on all levels, but true beginners. Anyone with the desire to further their understanding of the craft and who commit to building great work. Each student works from their own shop with a good internet connection and camera, so you can join our class each week on Zoom. We will use a full kit of tools from hand to power tools to build our portfolio of great pieces, work that you will be proud of. Invest in yourself at the bench. Invest in your education. Please check out our website at northwestwoodworking.com, all spelled out. Click on the online mastery page for more information and to request a prospectus. Thank you.
There's a reason why Pony Jorgensen is tight with woodworkers. Their clamps are made using only the highest quality of materials, and they inspect each one to guarantee consistency and performance. That's what they mean when they say clamps without compromise. Head on over to ponyjorgensen.com to explore their wide range of pipe clamp fixtures, bar clamps, hand clamps, and more. And join their woodworking community on Instagram by following them at pony_Jorgensen. I didn't warn anyone. Does anyone have like a smooth move or a favorite tool? Or Anissa and I recorded another podcast like 3 days ago, and I think I used all mine up. But Ellen, do you have anything you want to?
Well, I do. I mean, I think, my favorite tool is a table saw, because I just love it. You can do so much with it. And it's, I just love it so much. I would be lost without a table saw. I don't know.
What's your favorite table saw of all time?
Rockwell Unisaw. It's very small. I just love that saw. It is a right, it does tilt the wrong way, but that's fine. It's just a great little compact, saw. So that is, Powermatic 66, an older one, they're great. And then, you can't beat today. If I was to buy a new saw stop, I mean, they just are really nice machines. They work really, really well. I mean, just the technology on them, how if something's wrong with like the different lights, flashing, and I think they're accurate. I just think that they work really, really well, and I would, never complain about that saw. That's they're great saws. So
I knew that you had an absolute soft spot for the Unisaw, because when we did that machine setup video, I didn't have this space yet, and my Unisaw was right there, and you saw it in the corner, and you were like, oh, Oh.
I know.
And
I love it.
like you had like a visceral reaction to seeing the Rockwell Unisaw, and it was like it's just Mike's old Unisaw, and you're like, no, I love these saws, and it was just. And I think we used it in that video. You used it to shim the table,
Yeah.
which was new to me. That's a thing that I had never seen before when setting up a table saw. Shimming, what would you call it? The fore and aft of the table or something, so that when you tilt the blade, it's all.
Yeah, so you're not getting like a compound angle is more what I think about. Even today, Ben, it's so funny that and Anissa, like it's so confusing. Like, where do you put the shims? Even today, I'm like, I have to read my article. Like, I cannot remember. I literally cannot remember. Like because it's opposite of what you think. So I'm like, where's that article? I gotta get. Even I just like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you tilt the blade, it could be making
when
a
you tilt the
compound
blade, if the front and back of the table saw aren't in the right plane, we'll say, right?
Yes, correct.
You wind up with a compound angle at the tilted blade. So if you're really dialing in a table saw, as I learned from you, and my Unisaw is, thanks to you, you have to shim the front or back of the table. So it's like, to me, before we did that video, setting up a table saw was like, okay, get the miter slot in the right place, get the fence in the right place, and move on, Right. But then there's that next level.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one of those things that we'll link to the video and to your article. But yeah, you had done it on this one. I think there's a little brass shim. You came in with like a little pack of brass shim stock, and you were all set to go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And use what you have. If you have to use like a soda can, anything that's softer than the cast iron, use what you have to shim it. I think we say that in the article, but I'm a big that's a big thing of mine. Like tune up the tools you have, because you can make them, you can make them work,
And you are also a fan. Like, I know that there's a lot of really great tools out there to help with setup, but I remember you just being like, no, it's all a stare. You just use your stare here.
Yeah.
Or your
combination square. Yeah.
Combination square. I'm sorry. I used to get on Matt about only saying stare it, and now I only say stare it. But so for a table saw setup, you only use a combination square, and then you used a dial indicator just for that 45-degree calibration.
Yes, correct.
And that's it.
That's it. Yeah. And that angle, if you're running everything at 90 degrees, that angle, that's just like you said, that's like the extra bonus step to do. Or if you just notice you're getting a lot of burning when you're angling, and your blade is new and clean, then hey, maybe you want to check that. But yeah, everything I use my, stare at combination square, because it's, just, really precise. So to set up, really.
And you're not investing in hundreds of dollars worth of calibration tools that you're going to use once every blue moon.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not bad to have a dial indicator, on hand, check other things, but yeah.
Cool. Anissa, did you have a favorite tool or something?
Well, it's not something I've ever tried before, but I was at Bob Van Dyke's yesterday shooting, and he did something that I've never seen before, which doesn't, I've been in a lot of wood shops and seen people doing things 50,000 different ways, but I think I might try this. And I actually have a video of him doing it if you want it, Ben.
Oh, okay.
So we were shooting an article about glue, different glues, and Bob has just tons of tips on all the different types of glue. And so one of the things that we were doing was using old brown glue, and we needed to reheat the joint after it was already dry so that we could show that, you know, you have some recourse. Like if you're using this glue, you can heat it up and you have recourse for glue up gone bad, which you can't do with like a yellow glue. And so we had this drawer, this little box that he was making for the shoot, and it was a dovetailed box, and he glued the thing together. And when it was dry, he heated it up with a heat gun. You have to heat it up for a while, but what he did after that, you know, when people are taking apart, when you're dry fitting your carcass or drawer box or anything with dovetails, Ben, Ellen, how do you take the box apart when you're dry fitting and you need to take it apart?
Oh, I've heard Bob's spiel on this, so I can't answer this.
Okay.
Without glue, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, just yeah.
If you're gonna just
mallet and some wood in a mallet, so I'm not damaging it. Yeah. Or sometimes I'll put it on my bench, and I kind of like, I don't know if it's like an L-shaped carcass. I'll be like, you know,
bashing it on the corner of the bench.
Yeah. Yes.
That's all the stuff that I do. But so, and I think I kept moving these things. Bob had these like 4 of these triangular shaped pieces of like blocks of wood that I kept moving them out of the shop, and he kept moving them back, and they looked like they belonged in the burn pile, and they were, you know, between those triangular shaped things and his coffee. I was like,
the coffee,
moving everything.
Always with the coffee, and there's like 3 of them on his bench at all times.
Right. And so, you know, Bob doesn't know this, and hopefully he's not going to listen to this, but I was just like, why are these things here? Anyway, it's time to pop that dovetailed box apart. And basically it was 2 sets of opposing wedges. And so what he did was, and I've used wedges to clamp things before and apply pressure to things, but I've never seen wedges used like this before. So basically it's two sets of opposing wedges, and they were big to fit in the box, or, you know, so that you can start with a small box if you needed to, but they were big enough that you can get to a larger box. So on either end, on both ends, he had these opposing wedges, and rather than using the mallet, what he did was he got on the workpiece, he got those opposing wedges, and you can do it either one of 2 ways. You can hold the one side just with your hand and tap the other side with the mallet of the other side of the wedges. And then you go back and forth from one side to the other, because you have these 2 sets of wedges. It's so hard to explain. And Ben, if you want to post that video or some still photos, I can send you some.
Sure.
Or you can use a clamp across the 2. You're catching both sides of the line, and you go back and forth from one set to the other, and it just pops. Those wedges keep pushing up the top of the box, and it just came up. It was very, very civilized compared to what I normally do.
Civilized.
So that's my new kind of favorite technique of the day.
That's cool. I would have those wedges, and then I'd forget about them. And then I'd be like, what are these? And I'd throw them out. And then I'd be like,
you'd make them into a push stick.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah. I'd be like, what? I need them.
All right. So mine, I don't have it. I thought I had it, but I had a stupid woodworking trick.
Oh.
And with dividers.
Oh.
And the other day, I have like 4 outlets within 6 feet of me, and 12 power strips seemingly, because everything has the wall warts that cover up multiple outlets on them. So I needed to hang up another power strip. And for a while now, I've been just grabbing a pair of dividers, and you know how on the back of a power strip or whatever, they've got the little slots that you can hang it on screws.
Mm-hmm.
So you take the dividers, set it to the distance of the slots, and you just poke holes in the wall at the distance of the slots.
Oh,
Okay, I just did this at my shop, and that is genius. Like, that is brilliant.
yeah.
It gets better. So I've been doing that for a little while. And then I realized if I take my little torpedo level and hold it on the dividers, I can poke the holes level.
Wow.
And then when I hang the thing up, it'll be level. It's not woodworking, I know, but it's stupid
No.
woodworking trick with woodworking tools.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And I feel very clever every time I do it.
Woodworking is all about the tricks. I love that.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Fixing your mistakes, and all the little tricks that other people know that you need to know. And that's, oh my gosh.
I love that.
Awesome.
Woodworking is all about fixing mistakes and little tricks.
Yep, that's it.
It really is.
Yeah, fixing
Right.
That's
mistakes.
why it's fun.
Yeah.
Like making stuff is great, but like
Yeah.
that's a nice side effect. We just like little tricks and stuff. Yeah. All right. I think we have time for one more question. You cool to carry on a little, Ellen?
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
The walnut one.
Oh, okay. This one keeps getting knocked down. Sorry.
Okay.
This one's always the last one on the list, and Anissa's been really wanting to answer this one. We're going to have you on again because you're the only one who can answer the planer question, though.
Okay.
Oh, do the planer question then.
No.
Do the walnut. Do the walnut.
All
Do the
right,
walnut.
yeah.
Love
From
walnut.
John. Not too long ago, I milled up a walnut tree on my parents' property. All of the lumber will be used for dimensional boards, except this live edge piece I had left over. I'm not sure what I want to do with it. I am in between making a hall table, a coffee table, or a small bench utilizing the live edge look of the piece. The problem I'm running into is what species of wood should I use for the legs and other features of the piece that would go well with the combination of sap and heartwood present. I live in the Midwest and prefer to use native species if possible. What would you suggest, or does this look like a good piece of firewood? So I'll post the piece of wood that he sent. It's a beautiful piece.
It's
beautiful
gorgeous.
slab.
Do
And
not.
not all
at
slabs
all.
are beautiful, people,
No.
but this one's got it.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ellen?
Yes, I typically, just for me, I'm not a big fan of mixing woods. That's just my own aesthetic. But I think people should do what they want to do. And have I done it in the past? Yes. So maybe I think a coffee table with that slab would be really, really cool. And maybe do some walnut legs that are, just turned very simple, tapered, and then, do a turned tenon through tenon, and then you could wedge it with maple or just something to give it a little, extra.
Yeah.
Or I would try to match a wood with a similar grain. So, I wouldn't do maybe ash with the walnut because the grains are so different. Maybe I would do maple. To me, has a similar grain pattern, tightness and just feel. So maybe I would do the same thing with maple legs would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would kind of go with the sapwood of it. But that's my take. Definitely it seems like, John wants to stay with the domestic wood, which I love domestic as well. So those are my thoughts.
So subtle little very.
Subtle. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess walnut is technically an open pore wood, but you don't really see like when you said ash, it's ash is open pore, and the late wood, early wood growth rings or whatever are dramatically different.
It has that more of a texture to it, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Anissa?
I agree with Ellen that I don't that the subtle is the way to go. I don't mind combining different species on a project if it's done to the aesthetic that I like, which is a more subtle thing. I'm not really a big fan of high contrast woods, but I don't like a lot of contrast. I was thinking about this exact same question when I started doing that walnut wall unit. And I spent a lot of time thinking like, oh, I could do walnut, and I can have the doors in a different wood, and I could have those vertical partitions in a different wood, and what should I do? And when I start thinking about a project in wood, and especially if it's a walnut, I always go back to Tim Coleman has this beautiful piece with these frame and panel upper partition, and he combined cherry and walnut, and they looked beautiful together. The way he used them, it was very subtle, very deliberate. They look perfect. I'll send you a photo of the one I'm talking about. But back to the wall unit, I was trying to figure out I definitely wanted to use 2 different woods. And I asked Mike about if he had a preference, and, he was just like, you're making this thing. And I kind of settled on oak and walnut. And then I reached out to my friend, Kevin Coffinger. He's written for the magazine once or twice, and he was on the back cover. And I went to school with him, and he's a big wig over at Freud. And I was texting him, and I said, so what other wood species do you think I should use with this walnut thing that I'm building? What would you do? What wood would you use with your walnut? He said, walnut. So I was like, oh, he has I'm always blown away by his aesthetic and the decisions that he makes in his woodworking. He just does beautiful work. And at that point, I think I had already purchased all the oak for the vertical things. And at a certain point, I realized like he's right. I just keep this simple, especially for the design of that piece. I ended up staining the oak to make it look as walnut as I could. Because the walnut with the walnut was the way to go. But also I had a lot of plain, very vertical grain plywood that I used. And the solid wood pieces that I used were, they had some spalting in them. So it was spalted walnut. And I like that combination too. Like if you can use the same wood species, but use different grain or patterns in that same species to kind of deliberately put it in specific spots that work. Does that make sense? Or am I
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically I'm kind of agreeing with everything that Ellen said, and it's taking me 10 minutes to do it.
Well, one thing that Ellen, I'm going to talk about you like you're not here. Ellen does is that I love, and I'm hoping we can get the schedule worked out soon. We're going to do like a picture frame video kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if you've seen it, Anissa, though, but Ellen will like make a really, really nice subtle thing, and then just like a loud, like in your face, not loud, but totally different. You use Formica for an inlay. And like, I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, that's sacrilege. You're not allowed to put Formica on a fine piece. And Ellen's like, I'm allowed to do whatever I want. and it's so great because it'll be a really simple thing with this one standout moment that I love. And you can do that with like a standout piece of grain of whatever. But like I love that thing that you do, especially the Formica, because it's just like kind of giving everyone else the middle finger. I love that idea.
Thank you.
So
yeah. My dad worked a lot with Formica, and I just, as a child, just always remember the Formica ring of samples in the basement. And so I was like, I want to use this. I want to do this. And so that's kind of what, kind of like pay tribute to him type, so, but with the frames too, I always do splines on the outside of the miters. And then that too goes into the contrast because, when I first started doing that class, I'd always be like, hey, let's do like a contrasting spline, like a maple with a walnut, a maple spline, and then, or the cherry too, or make a cherry frame with a contrasting wood spline. And then I started using the same species because the spline is really end grain. So it will get darker. So then it's just a subtle contrast to it. So, I've definitely moved through phases with that as well. So, yeah.
I wouldn't be afraid of using a different material. I think of Michael Robbins, how he's always doing mixed materials with like, a beautiful slab like that with maybe it's done a lot now, but with a metal base, because it is just totally different. And the elements aren't necessarily competing with each other then. One is obviously the base. One is obviously the visual flair, so that's another thing to think about. Or treat wood. A student of yours, Evan, what's his last name? He just moved down to Dallas.
Laney? No.
This is killing me. Evan, he did the Salmon Falls chairs. He was, he shared shop space with Matt Wada, whatever. He would paint things to make them look as, he's a woodworker. So he created things out of wood, but he would paint things, with as flat of a, or not flat of a surface as possible, but with as homogeneous of a surface as possible, so that it looked like it even looked like, plastic or Formica or metal or whatever. It would visually disappear sometimes.
Yeah.
Cool. So.
Yeah. And I'm into the colored veneers. I love doing that as well. So I'll actually make splines, like taking different dyed veneers, and definitely shout out to Certainly Woods. They have the best dyed veneer around, and just and so I'll kind of like make like kind of like a plywood out of it and laminate it, and then that's kind of a fun pop of color too with the
so you're making like a plywood for the splines
out
of dyed veneers.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And with maybe with solid wood in between, or just a or solid veneer, so that you can get like a maybe like red, white, or, blue. And yeah, that's always fun. Yeah.
Ellen, I feel as though I remember seeing these really beautiful, a box or a vase with colored circles, a circular pattern on them.
Yep.
Is that?
Yes. So I did a box with the Formica.
It's Formica.
That was Formica. I've done some bud bases where I've taken with trammel points, and I'll scratch in a circle, and I've done some inlaying of I'll cut the strips of the dyed veneer, and I'll do circles of the inlay circles with the dyed veneer. So I've done that too, but you might be thinking of the boxes with the mitered box was with the Formica. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are really pretty.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ellen's not afraid of color.
I'm not afraid of color. No, that kind of happened. That was kind of how it's funny how things like evolve. I was giving a demo a few years ago. Massachusetts had it was called 4 Centuries of Massachusetts Furniture, and there was like 11 museums involved. North Bennett Street was involved, and so there is a Old Sturbridge Village is a kind of like a museum town. You can
like a living history.
Living history museum, and I was asked to go and give demos for 10 Saturdays. And they were part of this 4 Centuries of Massachusetts Furniture. And they were featuring a furniture maker who did he was from that area, from the Sturbridge area in like I think 1870s. And all of his work had sand shaded fans and, inlaid eagles. And so it was through North Bennett Street. They did like a display, and then I was there and they said, you can do whatever, you can demo whatever you want. And I'm like, oh, I'll demo a sand shaded fan. And so that was fun. And then, people walk by for like 5-10 minutes and they move on. And I love demos. Demos are so much fun. You just talk to people for like a brief moment, and then maybe they come back. And then I was like, I'm here like 8 hours. And so then I bought the dyed veneer and I started playing around with that. And that's how that all came to be. Just from that demonstration, I was sort of bored, you know what I mean? It's just funny how things just kind of snowball from there. And I was like, oh, yeah.
It's interesting, like how a situation like that gave you the freedom to do something you might not do in a piece, because there was no risk involved in this now.
Yeah. And, you're just there hanging out. So why not,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are you hearing the donkey, my neighbor's donkey?
No.
Okay.
No.
I have the sad donkey time going on.
Oh.
When my neighbor takes the horse, my neighbor gives horse lessons, riding lessons or whatever, but she brings the horse to you.
Oh.
And then the donkey gets sad. It just sits there and cries. And it's really sad.
No.
So she takes the horse away and the donkey gets depressed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes the donkey gets out because he's depressed and bored, and that's when it gets exciting around here.
But you don't live in like a really rural spot.
I'm right next to the highway, but there's behind us is, I think it's maybe like 5 acres or something like that. And they've got a couple of horses and a donkey and a barn and that stuff. But like the donkey will get out and like go. So right up the road is like this really rich neighborhood, and the donkey will run up there and raise hell and eat flowers and stuff. And then like, so all of us are like trying to chase the donkey down, and like, it's the only time the whole neighborhood like kind of unifies is to chase down Burrito. But all right. Well, I think we've totally taken up too much of your time. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It was so much fun. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
We'll do it again. And I really want to, we got to get that figured out. When I can get up there, they're letting me, if you know anyone, they're letting us hire another digital person. So that'll give me more time to run around with a video camera.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
We got to do that for Micah stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe splines with your plywood.
Yeah. Yeah. The Formica would be fun, or the picture frames, or that would be so much fun.
Well, you've done picture frames with like a Formica inlay, haven't you?
Not have I done?
I remember seeing one. There was like a dot and there was a squiggle leading up to the dot. Maybe it wasn't Formica.
No, that was probably the colored veneer.
Okay. That's where I was like, we need to do a video with that.
Yeah. That was definitely the colored veneer. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But I'm down for all of it. So
it's exciting. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
It was good seeing you, Ellen.
You too. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
Hopefully we can do this more, and we'll see you. Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thanks again to Ellen Kaspern for coming on the show. It's always great to have her on and get her perspective, and remind us that we could all be a little kinder to our machines. Thank you so much to Jeff Rose for handling the audio mix and the video for this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that thumbs up button. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for listening. I'm recording. Yes, got it.
Yep, I'm in the middle of a Zoom meeting. Who's calling, please?